Does God belong in America? That's not just a theological question. It's a cultural one, a political one, and more importantly, a moral one. You see, the way we answer this says more about us as a nation than it does about God himself. Because the real question isn't whether God fits America. It's whether America is willing to align itself with God's principles. You see, we once were a nation founded by God and for God. Now, America was built on these ideas. America was built with the idea of freedom at its core. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion. That freedom has created both greatness and chaos. But somewhere in that freedom, we began to confuse choice with truth. We've told ourselves everyone can have their own version of God, their own version of morality, their own version of the truth. And while that sounds nice and all in theory, it leaves us asking, what anchors us? If truth is relative, then morality is negotiable. And if morality is negotiable, then justice becomes unstable. That's where America finds itself today, trying to build a nation on shifting sand. Where does our loyalty lie? You see, in history, our loyalty relied on God, family, and faith. You see, the founding fathers invoked God constantly in their writings, not necessarily because they all followed him personally, of course not, but because they understood one simple thing. Without God, government has no restraint. And without God, freedom turns into license, and a license turns into destruction. And they weren't trying to force religion. No, they were trying to acknowledge that a higher power had to be above man's power, or else man's power would devour everything in its path. Let's fast forward a little bit today, ladies and gentlemen, and we see a nation where God has been pushed out of schools, out of public life, and even out of conversation. Yet we wonder why depression is higher than ever before, why families are fractured, why young people feel purposeless. You see, when you remove the compass and then question why people are lost, you can't be upset with all the people falling to the wayside. You see, this is somewhat of a cultural debate, but not really. But when people say God doesn't belong in America, what they're really saying is we don't want accountability. Because God doesn't just bring comfort, he brings standards. God says you can't treat people however you want. You can't redefine marriage however you want. You can't exploit the poor, abuse the earth, or ignore justice and call yourself righteous. But America has turned God into a slogan instead of a standard. And God we trust is printed on our money. We see it every day. Yet greed rules our economy. We pledge one nation under God, yet live as though God is under us, subject to our demands, redefined by our preferences. So the issue isn't whether God belongs in America. No, not of course. The issue is whether America still belongs to God. See, on the personal side of this isn't just a national issue. It's a personal issue. A nation is nothing more than millions of individuals living their lives stitched together. If God doesn't belong in our homes, if he doesn't belong in our relationship, in our businesses, and in our private lives, then he won't belong in our politics or our public squares either. You can't exile God. I'll say that again. You cannot exile God from the private and then expect him to bless the public. We keep saying, God bless America, while America doesn't want to bless God. That's like asking for the benefit of relationships when you're not willing to commit. There's a consequence that we are paying for the absence of God. Look at what's happening when God is removed from our culture. When God is absent, idols rise. For some, it's money. For others, it's power. For others, it's self and idols, American idols, always demanding sacrifice of our children, sacrifice of our peace, sacrifice of truth. And when a nation loses God, it eventually loses itself. You see, Rome fell not because of outside enemies, but because it rotted from within. morally, spiritually, and culturally. America risks walking that same road if it refuses to humble itself before something greater. This is my call to you. Does God belong in America? Absolutely. But not as some forced religion, not as a political pawn, but as the foundation in which we were built on. You see, God belongs in the conversation, in the consequence, and in the culture, because without Him, we're left with nothing but opinions and battling for power. You see, America, if we want healing, God belongs here. If America wants unity, God belongs here. And if America wants justice, God belongs here. If you want to see God in America, it starts with you, because revival never starts in Congress. It starts in your hearts. It starts in your homes. It starts in the decisions to stop asking, does God belong in America? And start asking, do I belong to God? God doesn't need America, but America desperately needs God. The question is, are we humble enough to admit, that our nation needs God before it's too late? My wish and my blessing and my prayer is that we all turn our face to God, that we all realize and look to the hills in which cometh our help. Humble ourselves before the presence of God and return back to what this country was made and founded on. And may truly God bless America. I'll see you guys soon. And make sure you subscribe. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on Fearless Conversations. I love you guys. God bless you. See you soon.